Some of those challenges may have included memorizing lines for a Booth Street play, preparing for a big game or meet, or trying to rapidly finish online health or computer lit in order to graduate here today. But my favorite challenge was at the high jump pit during track season. I would stare down the bar before each jump, knowing that I will determine whether I made it over or not. If I failed, I still had 2 more chances, and if I succeeded, the bar would rise and I would be staring it down once more. By graduating, we have succeeded. We have jumped over the bar, but this only means the bar is about to rise again. There will always be another challenge, another risk to stare down. The more risks we take, the more we may fail, or the more we may succeed. But if one thing is certain, the more we will learn. Therefore, we must keep raising the bar. I want you to think about the simpler times. Think about kindergarten. Teachers told you that there were no numbers below 0. You had to color inside the lines, and you could be whatever you wanted. And since we've learned that they were sometimes wrong, I assure you, negative numbers do exist, and coloring outside the lines isn't a crime. But we also like to think now that we have to be realistic, and we can't be whatever we want. How many of you wanted to be a professional athlete when you were little? The president, or the next Hannah Montana? You set your bar high when you were 3 feet tall, and now you've grown taller, yet you may have lowered your bar. Our next speaker, Miss Heather Foster, will tell us how our dreams aren't merely fantasies or fairy tales.
I found myself falling into recently. I found a quote by mathematician Andrew Wiles stating, "I had this rare privilege of being able to pursue in my adult life what had been my childhood dream. And now I wonder why this privilege is so rare." When asking the adults in my life about their careers, I
accomplished a great feat as we earned our diplomas. We never gave in. Not to the high school drama, not to the stress at home, not to the people who doubted us. We made it. I stand before you today as a student who fell in love with the yellow tiled halls of Reno High, a student who fell in love with learning. But my greatest lessons did not come from an English textbook, nor a specific physics lecture. They came from you, from your stories, your friendship, and your will to succeed.
Today, as a Reno High School graduate, you will have roughly 30,000 days ahead of you. What will you do with those 30,000 days? Psychologist Malcolm Gladwell poses the idea of an outlier, someone who is a product of history and community, of opportunity and legacy. Bill Gates is an outlier. He lived by Gladwell's 10,000-hour rule, believing if you put in the time, you can become an expert in anything. Gates had the opportunity to do real-life computer programming in 8th grade. He convinced his high school teachers to let him work on a project for a company as an independent study and spent hours coding for a man who would open numerous doors for him. This gave him the hours of practice he needed to become who he is today, and it all stems from taking advantage of opportunities. Gladwell speaks of the Beatles and Nobel Prize winners. The Beatles performed over 1,200 times before reaching their first true success in 1964. Most bands don't perform that many times in their entire careers. John Lennon explained that every night it was important to try even harder and put even more of their heart and soul into it. They took every opportunity they could find to play their music. What distinguishes their histories is not their extraordinary talent, but their extraordinary opportunity. The last 25 Americans to win a Nobel Prize in medicine or chemistry went to schools like MIT, Yale, and Stanford, but also went to schools like DePauw University in Greencastle, Indiana, the City College of New York, and Washington State University. Gladwell shows that to be a Nobel Prize winner, you have to be smart enough to get into college. You have to have an edge of creativity. You have to apply yourself. That's all. My goal here today was not to just give you examples of individuals who have had successful lives, but to show you that regardless of the path you take, there will always be a time to exceed the expectations.
Ain't no mountain high, ain't no valley low, ain't no river wide enough, baby.
morning and welcome to the Reno High School 2017 graduation ceremony. Before I begin my remarks this morning, I would like us to observe a moment of silence for Reno High School sophomore, Katie Weingartner, who tragically lost her life over the weekend. Thank you. At this time, I would like to introduce our dignitaries on stage with me. Washoe County Board of Trustee, Melena Raymond. From our District Leadership Office, Superintendent Tracy Davis. Deputy Superintendent, Dr. Kristen McNeil. Chief School Performance Officer, Dr. Paul Lamarca. Chief Accountability Officer, Ben Hayes. Chief Communications and Community Engagement Officer, Irene Payne. Area 1 Superintendent, Richard Swanberg. And Miss Ruth Williams, Principal of Jesse Beck Elementary School. Reno High School has 6 retirements this year. Please join me in recognizing these amazing individuals who have dedicated their careers to young people. Sandy Lisdahl, Special Education Teacher. Kathleen Evans, Math Teacher. Sue Marin, PE Teacher. Sergeant Major Rick Camacho, JROTC. Barbara Whiteley, our librarian. And Cheryl Arobio, Attendance Secretary. Just below me to my right, I would like to acknowledge the faculty who make Reno High School not just any school, but an educational environment that is safe, challenging, and embodies respect, honor, strength along every turn of our yellow tiled walls. This family, this team of caring professionals, takes on the challenge of every child by name and face to graduation personally. Their title, and you matter. I have a quick story for you. I'm reading this book titled On Fire by John O'Leary. The author was in a house fire burning 100% of his body when he was only 9 years old. He was not expected to survive the night. His story did not end there, however. He endured excruciating rehabilitation for 5 months, struggling to regain mobility and control of his body. Through the traumatic event, John not only survived, but he actually believes it changed his life for the better. This story of resilience is extraordinary, and he contributes many people to his survival. At 9 years old, John was in a hospital 5 months, as I mentioned before. Remember, 100% of his body was burned at 9 years old. His clothes and his skin had literally melted together, and his body tightened as the skin burned, flaking like charcoal that fateful night. His life hung in the balance in the hospital. It was room 404, where his doctor would routinely perform rounds with the residents from the hospital. The group would come in with their white lab coats and discuss his health plan and recovery. One visit stood out in John's memory, however. One morning, the doctor asked one man to step forward during their visit to room 404. It was not the residents or a doctor or a nurse. It was a man named LaBelle. You see, LaBelle was the janitor, and every day he would turn on his radio and clean John's room spotlessly. This particular day, the doctor had LaBelle come forward to his side of John's bed in front of the residents. He looked him in the eye and he said, "Take a good look at that little boy. You see him lying there? LaBelle, you are keeping him alive. You are doing this. This is the result of your good work." At the time, John didn't really know what the doctor was really talking about. He didn't know the #1 killer of burn victims is infection. Infection kills in hospitals. With no skin, the probability of John dying from infection was extremely high. John states in his book, while the doctors did all they could to prevent infection, the most important person to diminish the likelihood of infection was not the doctor or the nurse, it was the janitor. Please prepare to come forward for individual recognition.
Martinez Morales.
Alexis Rose Olson, scholarship recipient.
Kent Carl Morris.
Molly Grace Paradis.
Angel Isaias Moya.